All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I have the privilege today of having both Father Peter and John Heers. How are you guys doing today?
Really good. It's good to see my brother again. It's weird. We're like hanging out more. We should make movies more often, then we could talk.
Good to see you, David. How you doing? Thanks for having us.
Of course. And, the reason for our conversation is the documentary film project, Christianities, which we'll be discussing a little bit about. I'm sure we'll be getting into other topics as well. But where would you want to begin today's conversation? I have the link. We can watch the trailer and kind of go over the Indiegogo project fund. But how did all this come about?
I love origin stories. I'll do a origin story and then you do the trailer, or you want to do the trailer, then do the origin story? It's up to you. Let's do it. I'll do origin story.
All right.
So for me, it started at the KP restaurant, Supra, Georgia festivity thing when people start talking about deep stuff. But I think the actual film idea was probably you, Father Peter. You were inspired by other cultural events going on and thought there's a clarification necessary. Would you argue that?
Yeah, I mean, there's this discussion, obviously, everybody's talking about for about 5 years now. It's at the forefront of a lot of cultural war issues, and that is the question of identity, specifically, transgenderism. What is a man? What is a woman? And I saw a documentary dedicated to that theme, and it just hit me that the reason why we're even talking about this, of course, is we've lost track a long time ago. We blurred it, we distorted it, or it was lost to most people in the West of who is Christ, which of course will determine who am I, and because we're made in the image of Christ, and then inseparable from that is his body, the church, these identities, all this question of identity that we're at the extreme level of not understanding man, woman, boy, girl. Well, long before that, we had a identity crisis with regard to our creator, our image, ourselves, and the body. So, and then I said, well, we've got to do something. Initially, it was kind of like, what is a Christian? But it's come now to be Christianities, which I think John can talk about that a little bit. But I think it's
because you didn't want that.
No, I did. I'm good with that.
No, he was very good with it. Guys, it's been a flexible process, given the fact that we have inflexible people working together.
Shots fired.
No, including me. I'm very inflexible. But it's been amazing, actually.
And we should mention Scooter's a part of this project. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it today.
Oh, yeah, he's terrified. He doesn't want to get on with me and Father Peter. He just makes really good movies. He just does really good stuff, and then he avoids the crossfire. I think I would add one thing. I think the origin story also starts, and this is the part I know Father Peter doesn't want to DPH. You'll like this, but movie maker, storyteller types, you'll get this. I think the story sort of starts with differentiations between my brother and I, just like way back when. And I know that's not the story, but the tension has created a reality, which is, it kind of is the story of how do we know who's in and who's out? First of all, the conversation itself is kind of weird, but like, why are there so many Christianities? Maybe they aren't all Christianity. Like maybe. Right. And then you start going, well, how can you tell? And I think my story has been always waiting around in cultures where very few people would say I'm a Christian, but it's kind of still, for me, like super invigorating and also really interesting because I see Christianity in their own narrative about their own culture. And that's kind of foreign to the way some other folks think, maybe like my brother. So what's happened is I think we're learning about this answer in part because we're learning about our relationship. Now, that sounds all romantic and nice and fuzzy, but I do think there's something to that. And as a storyteller, I like that idea a lot.
All right, well, let's check out because I got more specific questions I want to ask regarding American culture, the state of the West, Orthodoxy, all this different stuff.
Can I go back 1 second, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you just, after my talk about the warm and fuzzy part about the narrative of the brothers, did you see my brother's reaction? It was this. He literally just made the sound of move on. That's the sound of move on if you're listening.
He doesn't like to express his love for you publicly.
It's just too fuzzy.
There's no question. I have been asked no question.
It's too artsy. It's too like.
I'm happy to jump in, but let's hear. Let's have a question from the.
All right, I'll shut up. But I thought that was funny.
Okay, let's play the trailer real quick for everybody. And again, let me share this link too while we're at it. So this is the Indiegogo link for their film project, trying to raise money. I'm going to share that in the live chat right now so you guys can use that to support the project. And you can
do that. Use it.
You can view this right there. So let's play this real quick, and then I got more specific questions I want to ask.
What is a Christian? I kind of do this for a living. My name's John Heers, and this is our restaurant. And in this restaurant, we throw this Georgian supra. It's a dinner, and it elicits all these toasts and ideas and emotions. And inevitably, the question comes up, what is a Christian? an evangelist, a missionary, a martyr, a healer, a saint? What is the church? A denomination, a building, an invisible body? What's Christianity? A religion, a way of life, a revolutionary political movement. There's a cultural moment happening right now where the old Christianity has died in many people's hearts. And yet, if you drive around town, you see that it exists. Why is it so different from one place to the next? Yet what you see is not a single Christianity, but Christianities. You see a divided faith, divided by politics, by belief, by whatever. Are you driving by a museum or a social club or something else? What's inside all those buildings? Is there something for you there? Where is God? And if you knew where he was, would you want to go? Is there a Christianity that's growing, or dare I ask, more true than others? We're going to interview people from all over the world. And as we do, I want to go on a journey with you guys and figure it out. Our goal is to investigate how people through the millennia and right now, how they see Christianity. Let's figure out what's going on with all of these Christianities.
Oh, keep going. Don't end yet.
Do what?
Keep going. It's not over yet. It's important the last second or two.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
Who knew?
There you go. That IES is kind of important to the whole thing.
All right.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Look at that.
Well, explain why it's important.
Well, John, go ahead. You want to shoot?
This is weird. I just want everyone to know this is weird. It's deferring. It's kind of scaring me. I feel like someone's going to play a trick on me here in a minute. I think that it's one of the things that's obvious is one in the many and how to talk about it. So the Roman Catholic Church, is it the church? So is it a type of Christianity? Is it the one? Well, I know people that call them papists. And so what is that? Are they just people following a guy in Rome? So there, and without the IES, we don't get to the heart of the matter, which is there's some kind of kaleidoscope, some sort of spectrum that has exploded that we have to figure out and how we got to that place. And so I think the IES says, yeah, there's a lot, and we need to investigate all of them on some level and how we got here. Does that sound right to you, Father Peter?
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's several ways that, you could approach the question of how did we get so many Christianities? There's a historical approach, theological approach, a spiritual approach, sociological approach. There's all kinds of ways you can approach it. We're going to approach it by going to leaders of these various flavors or forms of Christianity that exist today, people who are well known, hopefully, with a lot of interesting interviews, and let each person speak and try to give an answer to the question. Like, how did we get? What does it mean? Why are there so many Christianities?
And man on the street interviews.
And man on the street interviews, and maybe even people, and hopefully people outside of these Christianities looking in, like Richard Dawkins or someone who's going to say, well, from our perspective, this is why, or this is what this is all about. Mm-hmm. And it's, part of we could talk about all kinds of angles to take on this, but I mean, in the spiritual life, one of the most important things you can do spiritually is to attain self-knowledge, right? You come to autonosia in Greek, you come to self-knowledge. That's essential if you're going to come to knowledge of God. These things are inseparable because we're made in the image of God. And so in the West, we've got to come to like a knowledge of how did we get here? Who are we? Mm-hmm. What is this all about? If we're going to come to knowledge of like the true face of God. So it's a process. It's a process of self-discovery. And so it's part historical, part theological, part spiritual, part sociological. And I think that's going to be our motivation of going to the various places, people, and also going in not only in time, back in time, like historically, but going in space, as it were, going to the old world. There's a big part of this is old world, new world. John works a lot of First Things Foundation, all about that, because is Christianity a Western religion? Is it an Eastern religion? Where is the heart of it? Where has been the heart of it for 2,000 years? And the whole way of Christianity. I think in America, we kind of live in a bubble for a lot of people, we live in a kind of a Western, more or less Protestant bubble of Christianity. But there's there's huge growth and all kinds of variations going on in India or in Africa or in Eastern Europe that I think a lot of people are just very ignorant of. So hopefully if we can fund this, because a lot of it's unfortunately going to depend on, just how much funds we have and how much traveling we can do. We want to go to the old country. We want to go to Greece. We want to go to Georgia, where John spends a lot of time. We want to go to the Middle East if there's not a war going on. We want to go to to the heart of Christian history, Christian identity, and I think that will be extremely helpful to all of those viewers to come to better self-knowledge about what does it mean to be a Christian.
Right. Yeah. I want to remind everybody, smash that like, and if you have any questions for Father Peter or John, feel free to send those in. I saw Hagia Sophia. You guys going to make a trip to Turkey?
For sure. Well, let's put it like this: the blessing of the project, in some ways, is we can do things on the back of my work. In other words, I go through Constantinople, Istanbul all the time on the way to Georgia. That's not a difficult thing to go there. To get the whole film crew there, that's another conversation that demands money. But there'll be aspects of that. Absolutely, we fully plan to create that kind of reach. And the reason is because with that kind of reach, you burst that bubble that you're talking about, where we imagine Christianity is something like an American religion. Right. This is such a weird concept. Yeah. At least for me.
I spent 20 years in Greece. I mean, I think that it's like Twilight Zone, frankly. The idea that it's an American or even a Western European religion is really ahistorical and just, not reality. And so it's really important for us to go to those places, I think.
Well, I had this thought today. I saw James Baldwin being interviewed in the 1960s, maybe late 60s. I don't know if you guys know James Baldwin, famous civil rights novelist, right? Altogether smart guy. And it's during the period of the evangelical sort of explosion. And the interviewer says, James, you're seeing an explosion in Christianity. Why is it? And he says, because they're freaked out. He said, they're freaked out. And they're psychically afraid of what has happened to what they call Christianity. Just look around. And I thought that was a fascinating commentary by James Baldwin. And he starts to get into colonial Christianity. And so what is that? And when you start to realize how a lot of colonial Christianity spread, how Christianity spread as a colonial event, people out there going, this guy sounds progressive. He's using that colonial word a lot. But guys, it's a real event in history. And, right. and that event was tagged often as a nationalist Christian concept. The Portuguese did it. The Spanish did it. The British did it. So what I'm trying to say is that kind of Christianity got out in the water. And it's interesting seeing Baldwin going, whoa, I think Christians are trying to get back to their roots, some evangelical movement, because they don't like what they've created. He actually says something along those words. And I think that's the 70s. It's 50 years later, 40 years later. And here we are where nobody kind of wants to own that Christianity, if you notice.
Right.
And so that story has to be told. And it's helpful to talk to colonial Christians. The Africans that we work with in West Africa and East Africa have imbibed Christianity. Like, I don't know if people realize that's the fastest growing continent in the world for Christian conversion.
Right.
So how do we not tell that story? It seems kind of weak sauce. We just keep sticking around with the white people all the time. It's not a good way to go if you're a Christian. You've got to figure out what all these people are trying to say, and that's what we're going to do.
Right. When you were talking about colonial Christianity, it made me think of some of my own research looking at the millenarian fervor post Jacoma Fiore and somebody like Christopher Columbus believing that the Spanish Empire was going to bring about the return of Christ and a utopian global order. And that idea, and I've been writing about that being associated with scientific and technological progress and creating.
Bam, exactly.
And so I was going to connect that form, that really heretical. I mean, even by that time, it was condemned by the papacy, but that concept of somehow we are progressing further and further also leads to the proliferation of the Christianities
That's right.
that you mentioned because of the revolutionary spirit of progress and reformation.
Man, can I pick that up real quick just
Go
to
ahead.
say you're describing a type of man and obviously in some ways woman. It's a type of being, and people don't realize it's from the late 1400s, 1500s, and 1600s. There was a new way of being a Christian, and it was materialistic in nature. Like the cutting edge, right? If you're a surfer, it's the leading edge of the wave was you can be a Christian and you can adopt science, and the world will all be better for both.
Right.
And guys, that story is over. It's over.
Right.
It's over. So now the question is okay, but I went through this process. Jesus is a good guy. Father Peter, after I left the nest, I stopped going to church. You know that. And then I went to Africa, and Muslims were like my buddies. And I always thought, though, Christ is resurrected. Somehow, like, Jesus is, wow. Whoa. I always knew Jesus was like something. And when I came back and started investigating, I realized what I'm trying to explain right now is that the Christianities were creating a type of block to my awareness about what you said, Father Peter, about who I actually am and who we actually are. And now, all these years later, here's a film. And by the way, it's not the first one, but it is the first one to sort of, at least the one I know of, to take seriously this massive kaleidoscope, this spectrum, and do it in a beautiful way. I do think we're out to do something kind of unique that way, but it's a lot of words to say, guys, Christianity is out there, and we need to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And it's going to be, some people who are Orthodox are wondering, so, okay, what's, you guys are both Orthodox, you're doing this. How are you going to approach this? I think that's something maybe we need to discuss, because there's maybe some confusion as to how do an Orthodox do this in a way that's going to be totally and entirely, respectful, objective. What's the word we're looking for? Let every voice have its say without it being ecumenistic on the one hand. And there's a whole, but this is the beauty of Orthodoxy. The beauty of the truth is it shines forth. And for those, those who are searching, those who have, as the Lord says in the gospel, ears to hear and eyes to see, it's just going to speak for itself. And so we're going to present it and let it speak for itself. And it's going to be beautiful, because that's ultimately what people who, they want to find the beauty, the truth, the goodness all in one. They're looking for it, a holistic thing, right? So the fact that there's Christianity somewhere along the line, that holistic, and used theological language, Catholicity was lost. Like, we lost it. There can't be these massive extremes that are apparently totally opposed. Like, you can't have under the same title Christianity, you can't have extreme Pentecostalism and then extreme what's the opposite?
Sort of fundamental legalism.
Yeah,
or Calvinism.
There's it's a vast spectrum, and they can't really be reconciled on levels of ethos and dogma. So clearly that can't be what God intended, right?
What are some of the questions you'll be asking, let's say Protestants or evangelicals? Are they going to just self-define their belief, or are there going to be the same questions asked for every person?
Yeah. So there's a canon. There's some we'll share some. Well, here's one. Do you need to have a church to be a Christian? That's happening. Because that's a really good question. And there's not going to, even the man on the street can figure that out.
Right.
Because
I'm sure some of them wouldn't even, the way they define the church, maybe.
There you go.
Maybe quite different.
So the idea is, it's like to draw out the poison, so to speak. It's like when somebody gets snake bite, you want to draw something to the top. It's not that we're trying to tell. We want to. So that question draws out a million different ideas, right? Like it doesn't make anybody right or wrong in the conversation. It just draws it out. And when we ask a man on the street in old Mozambique, and they say, no, you don't have to have a church. And then they say the same thing in Charlotte, North Carolina, then you're like, okay, that's a strand there. What's that about? And we just keep like illuminating the strands, and then historically tie them together and show where they come from. And eventually what we have is an offering of something like a story. And then people at the end go, I like that story. That helps me a lot. But it won't be that you'll be able to choose Mormonism after watching our film, right, Father Peter? You could.
People are free to do whatever they want.
I think some of us in the Orthodox world want to say they're not going to be able to like.
It's really important to know how Christ works. Let's look at the gospel. What did he do? What did he do? Did he pressure people, force people? Did he trick people? Did he manipulate people? How did he work? He was just the presence of God in time and space. And those who had humility, faith, according to your faith, right? They got it. And those who didn't, they didn't have the presuppositions, they didn't get it. And he didn't. And when people came and said, what do I do to be saved? And he said, do this. And they said, no. He said, okay. You're free. You're free to go about. So that the presentation of Christ in history, the truth in history, is like that. It's not the Orthodox way is not to be, in any way impinge. I mean, God totally and utterly and scandalously respects our freedom, and He will never do violence to it because it's totally contrary to love and it's contrary to any kind of spiritual.
Right, and it's made
community.
in His image.
Right, He's not going to do it. So this film is not going to be. It's not going to be any kind of like. There's no worry on anybody's part, anybody who's participating, that there's going to be any of that manipulation. At the same time, there's no worry on our part as Orthodox that we're going to undermine the faith. Right. Why would that be the case?
If I'm hearing you guys correctly, it's not so much an Orthodox apologetic critique of all these other traditions as much as it is allowing the proliferation of Christianities to self-express and then tie that to a historical and geographical timeline so that people can logically come to their own conclusion about the church of the first millennia.
Yep. I think if people want to know and they should know, especially because we want you to give money. If you want to know sort of what it might look like, I want you to picture Anthony Bourdain going and sharing a table. And then after the table, there's a back narrative, me, after a talk with lots of interesting conversation and questions for, I don't know, Mel Gibson, the folks we're going to get on, Jonathan Peugeot, whatever. There's this colonial Portuguese guy in Mozambique we got to get on. And afterwards, it's me sort of narrating like, that was an interesting thought he had. It was similar to the guy we talked to in Cincinnati, but something's not right. And then we go to another person. And it's truly investigative in the sense that, unlike maybe Father Peter, I actually walk around more like a person confused. Father Peter's less confused. I have real confusion when I'm throwing a dinner and I'm this Tamada and I'm making a toast to family and I hear somebody who's like genuinely 100% Baptist and they make a toast that is 100% Orthodox. And I get confused. I just want everyone on who's listening. I go, that guy sounds just like St. Paisios. What do I do with that? Like, I actually am asking that. And that's what the film, what do I do with it? Like, okay, how does that work? And I know if someone's on here going, that sounds like some ecumenism. I'm just telling you what I heard.
Right. So the idea is that the fervency of people's personal beliefs obviously translates across these denominations and these Christianities, but seeing how they conceive and conceptualize what their faith is, means, and where it comes from will be something that the watcher will journey through from all these different perspectives.
Yeah. I think so. Father Peter, can I say it like this? Because I'm not a priest or whatever, a preacher. I might be, though. I might have been the actual preacher in the family. I'm going with that. I'm going with that. Are we through film? So you know how there's a soul and there's a contour to it? Like all souls aren't just like cut out block souls exactly the same. They're all life. They're all giving life to us. But you know how some souls have contour, and if we could smell them, they have a certain smell, they have a certain sound. We're trying to illuminate the soul of Christ on earth, of Christ's body on earth, and through film. Now we can't do it because it's not sacramental in the sense we're not offering it through the church, but we're offering a way to feel and sense that which is real without making it a polemic. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if people talk about how do you come and convert to Christ, to his body, to become a true Christian, that process is not mainly, although it's not irrational, it's not mainly rational. In other words, it's not a rationalistic process. It's not a 2 and 2 is 4 process, right? If it's true and it's heartfelt, it's going to be heartfelt. It's going to be not sentimental, but not logical, but supra logical. It's going to be intuitive, if you want to use that word. It's going to be an encounter, a personal encounter. Like when I walked into the Orthodox Church 30 some years ago, nobody talked to me. The scene I saw, I didn't understand. The language was mostly, I think it was mostly Greek. I don't remember.
I was going to ask if it was a Greek church.
Yeah, it was about half Greek, half English, I think. But it was not, on one level, if I would look back on it, it was pretty uneventful. But it was a huge event for me. So obviously there was something going on there that is much, much more than. So this is the idea that we're going to discursively, rationalistically argue for Orthodoxy, present Orthodoxy. I just think that's not how it works. It's not that I don't want to do it. I'm just like, that's not how it's ever worked for. Like they went to Constantinople, the Russian emigres, and they said we didn't know we were on heaven and earth, right? It was. Yeah. Did anybody like argue with them? Like you need to do. Sure, that's one aspect of the whole process. But if that's all it is, not only are we not really converting, we can't live a Christian life like that. It's not a Christian life.
Well, think about all the arguments, and we could joke about this, Father Pierre, but think about people out there, all the arguments you won with your parents. You didn't convince them of nothing, okay?
True.
But you definitely won some arguments, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have taken out the garbage and put it there because of the flies. Yeah, you shouldn't have done that, Dad. Yeah, but it's irrelevant. It's almost irrelevant that you used your words to win the argument. You didn't move hearts. And that's, we got to watch out, right?
Right.
We got to watch out how we use our words.
It's not going to be like contrary to the faith once delivered. It's not going to be undermining it, but it's also not going to be limited by that. And I think people immediately think, well, it's got to be apologetic, right? It's got to be a polemical. No, it doesn't. It actually does not have to be that way. There's actually a lot of ways to share Orthodoxy. So, or discover the truth about the church and the history of the church. So I think that hopefully it will be. I was talking to somebody I don't know if I should want to mention his name because we didn't say we were going to go public with it, but somebody who's very, very well known in evangelical circles, and we were talking today, and he thinks this is going to be a huge hit. This is going to be like a massive documentary to be remembered, and it's going to change the face of this Christian, documentary world. It's gonna, but I don't. I mean, that's just his idea. But the thing he wanted to say was more in terms of, the people are searching for not innovation and renovation, which is basically what defines most of Protestant Western Christianity.
Yeah,
for
just
a long
Western
time.
Christianity in general.
Yeah, they're looking for that which is constant and diachronic, and so I think that if that's the milieu of what's going on today, you don't need to say much. You just need to present it. You just need to present. Here's what these people say about Christianity. Here's what those people say. Here's what we discover when we go, to the old world, and it's going to speak for itself, just like Christ's presence spoke for itself.
The documentary, at least according to the trailer in the Indiegogo page, does make a claim that these Christianities seem to be dying, which I agree with. And I'm curious because we've already brought up identity, the plurality of these faith systems. How does the proliferation of Christianity relate to identity? What is the relationship between religion and identity? What are the attacks on personal identity? Could you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, I think of it as a hierarchy, and what you have ultimately is something like the good, the highest good, the God, the thing that is valued the most and above all else.
Mm-hmm.
And when people coalesce around that good, you start to see culture. You start to see the cult expressed in actual embodied events, like going to a church. I'm talking about sort of anthropologically now. And then that highest thing, when shared, it informs all the lower things, and you start to see, right, culture. And when the highest thing is not shared by the corpus, the body, when it's constantly each highest thing is my own highest thing and not your own highest thing, you not only see an inability to identify with others and be in cohesion, you see actually the inability to identify with a good thing, the highest good thing, because now it's just mine. And I start to have to define myself by myself. And there's nothing that unites me to others. And so that's just called the collapse of culture. Right. There's lots of ways cultures collapse. Christianities, too many of them, separate us. And so we don't have a way to commonly call ourselves a Christian. And it's just death on some level. It's cultural death. Another God will move in. We know this. Right. That's how it works. I think the answer to all this, and this will make people happy who are worried about the film and are Orthodox, the answer to all this is not a reformation. It's like a proto formation. It's going back. And so there's nothing to have to reform. The film doesn't have to form anything new in order to wow people. It's just to say this was always the culture. It's in here, guys. We just have to return to it. It's fascinating to think that could happen.
Right.
Could it happen? I don't know.
Well, go ahead, Father.
No, I was gonna go somewhere else. Go ahead.
I was going to say that, I mean, and you could speak on this. Clearly, we are seeing a surge in people converting to the Orthodox faith, specifically in America, but Western civilization, generally speaking. And I would assume, especially based on who I've talked to, this is related to a search of identity. And like, especially young men, and maybe, Father, you could speak to why is it that are young men that are being drawn in this particular time towards the Orthodox Church, especially in Western civilization, especially in America, where plurality dominates everyone's life, and that they're trying to find some type of rock to stand on to have a conception of themselves related to what John's saying, the ultimate good.
Yeah, well, the reason why, one of the reasons why we have such an influx of young men is because Orthodoxy, first of all, young men want stability. They want to provide stability, and they need stability themselves. They're looking for something that's going to be clear and not undermine their own identity. So they're looking for their own security. Everybody's insecure today, like on so many levels, for so many reasons, right? And I think that's actually the demonic methodology is precisely that. Because if you look at the gospel, what's the cornerstone of all the healings and of all the miracles? It's the trust in the person of Christ. And he says, according to the faith. So the opposite is always going to be to undermine security on every level, institutions, trust in your fellow man. I mean, I was going to say earlier, the individualism of the West inevitably leads to a disintegration of what John was talking about earlier, the ties that bind us, sociologically speaking, right? Individualism necessarily creates Christianities. It's so I wonder if it was just inevitable when they, and in the old world, that's a big part of what it means to be a Christian, is to be a part of the diachronic, roots in that community, right? And you're a part of the community. That's what it means to be a Christian. This idea that you could be an individual Christian, just impossible to imagine.
Right. It's a non-historical idea, that's for sure.
Yeah. So the anti-traditionalism, the individualism all of these things, I think, have undermined so much. So why are people coming to Orthodoxy? Because they realize that this is not totally undermined Orthodoxy, and Orthodoxy still still stands against all these. And intuitively and implicitly, they understand that Orthodoxy's, even if it's not, there's all these dogmatic and debates and things that go on, talking about history, talking about the papacy and all this stuff. But really, down deep, the one who's searching, they feel and they understand intuitively that only Orthodoxy is still offering the community identity and historical diachronic.
Well, it smacks them. It smacks them in the face because the activities of the Orthodox tradition call to the deepest parts of our soul. And that doesn't make it better, like in a qualitative sense. I don't want people to think that it's better that there's incense. Incense exists because of what it does. It's like it's inherent in the thing. Like it's a tool of Christos, like of Christ. Like if you think about that, you go like, it's a tool of God. So, and the reason that it's a tool is because of who we are, not because someone chose it, named like Father Peter. It's irrelevant. Its essence is that. And so these guys get whacked. They get whacked by this. And when they get whacked by it, they just are like, I gotta figure this out. And they move forward into the faith. Now, why isn't that happening to women? That's a really interesting conversation. I don't know. Maybe it is. There's probably women right now that go on. It's happening to us too, but
certainly to some degree. But and Father Peter, you may be familiar, but according to the OCA study, it was 70 to 75% of all converts were men under the age of 45.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy high. I think it's a matter of time. I think it'll come in waves, and I think that men generally lead. I mean, that's just young men lead and lead the way. But it's I don't think it's like, I think it's a time for a time we're going to have this kind of percentage. It won't last.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see you guys answer it. Father Peter, especially. Sorry, DPH.
No, feel free.
Hijacking. Yeah. So if anyone just clipped the last 5-6 minutes, and the church has this special stuff, and then Father Peter's talking about Orthodoxy, I think I have this question. These dudes are going to make like a fair film to all the Christianities. All they're doing is riffing about Orthodoxy. Like, how are we going to do that, Father Peter?
Well, I mean, we're not.
There's a way.
We're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and say we're not Orthodox. I mean, so that's that. I don't think I think they can coexist. Like, we can sit down and have a very good discussion with anybody, and without abandoning Orthodoxy. I don't why right. The idea that you have to do one or the other doesn't really flow.
Well, let me put it in a different way. How about this?
Yeah.
I'm just not in touch, but let's say evangelical player number one, he's really influential and he's got a lot of money and he's going to make a film. And he wants to make a film called Christianities, and he calls you up because, you're a priest and you weirdly have a bunch of people online following you, and you're friends with DPH. Are you guys going to do his film because you trust him to be really nice and not cast you in a bad light? Like you, Father Peter, you going?
I mean, for me, I don't think, as long as I understand that there's going to be a fair hearing and I'm going to present Orthodoxy.
But it's like Jimmy Stevens, Pastor Man.
Yeah, as long as I don't think there's any reason. I mean, the Apostle Paul. I went on. It's kind of interesting he's bringing this up because I went on Maria Z, who's doing an interview on the Alex Jones, Infowars. People, friends of mine wrote me up and said, "What are you doing? You crazy?"
I think I was one of them.
And I answered them, forgive me, but the Apostle Paul, who was a Jew, and it was understood that when he went to a community, he would go to the synagogue. And in Athens, he went as he was invited, and he went to the place of the pagans. In fact, where they met, and
yeah, this is true.
So, he stood there and he gave an apology in the midst of a place which was offering to idols. And he was under no circumstance that he embraced idol worship. So I think that it's a question of discernment. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So it's the same thing.
Is he sounded like an ecumenist? What is happening right now?
No, but in regards to your question, I don't think it's wrong to have an endpoint, a destination that the film takes the viewer. And so if you do any interview, there's always going to be some type of bias. And even if it's just to present information, that can be a destination, generally speaking. But I don't think it's a lack of justice to these other faiths by making a sort of period at the end of the documentary about the Orthodox Church and it not being part of this evolving, reforming phenomenon.
But I really do want to hear from, Pastor so-and-so.
Exactly.
Like, it's not, not going to.
Are you going to go in a cassock when you interview?
Yeah. If I go, I mean, I don't know if I'll go to every single.
I don't think they're going to let you out.
I don't think that as an Orthodox, I want to understand better. And I think that that's the whole process of self-knowledge that's going to be very helpful spiritually. In other words, there's a huge, ultimately, it's like contrary to the work of the church, there's a huge level of ignorance everywhere, not just for Orthodoxy, but just church history, just like what is the history of the church, all the rest. So you've got to realize that's where we're at, and you've got to build analogously. So I don't think it's all contrary to.
Just to answer my own question, I think of because I know people had that question,
right?
And here's the deal: when you read a beautiful novel, even a novel like if you read Vodolatskin's novel Loris, you don't put it down at the end and be like, I'm supposed to be Orthodox. That's not how it works. It's not like when you read Crime and Punishment, like, oh, I see. Oh, I've got to become Orthodox. It's not what's happening in that piece of art. Right. What's happening in that piece of art is the deepest, most profound, like, movements of the soul are being drawn out in you. I was really depressed when I read that because of my own sin. And then you just naturally turn towards something like light.
Right.
And that's what the film should do.
Well, that actually is a segue into one of the other questions I had, which was the concept of truth. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the plurality of a faith. There's objective truth claims regarding these various traditions that are in conflict with each other. And, obviously, Dr. Jordan Peterson has talked a lot about the postmodern turn and the liberal arts and all this, the relativism. And so connecting with the previous question of the young men converting to Orthodoxy, one of the common denominators is people are wanting to know. So in a way that they're searching for truth. And I do believe, in Father Turbo, we talked about, if anybody's honest about a full investigation of truth, maybe they go down various conspiratorial rabbit holes, but you eventually lead at Jesus Christ. And then if you get there, then it's which tradition. And then if you're there, the historical argument, I think, is really convincing for a lot of men, particularly.
Yeah.
So maybe the experience of Orthodoxy, and everybody approaches it differently. I'm not saying that, I'm not, putting women in a box that they don't also come to the church through historical arguments. I'm sure some of them do, but for young men, that's really powerful. And so even the documentary laying out in a historical timeline of the proliferation of these Christianities in a way is already kind of funneling the logical mind to that conclusion of what is the historical truth about the faith.
Yeah. It's built in some ways to this topic. To delve into this topic is to lead people in some sort of historical conversation. There's no way around it. And that, you're right, DPH. And that's not a far place to go for young men who are trying to figure out what's true and what's not. I agree with that. I think that's in our advantage. But I think, Father Peter, though, we talk a lot of when we plan, it also is going to be, it's going to have majesty.
Yes.
There's going to be moments of both. I think I would call them, you won't like this, Father Peter, but moments of psychological majesty, or when you see a turn of words that is reflecting a soulful moment. That's a type of majesty, but also like beautiful shots of like, you know, the people we're interviewing coming over a mountain in some little African village and sitting down for this weird talk. Like that's a really cool, beautiful thing that we should show. Or when we go to Athos, you know, deep into the Lavra and trying to fully understand this. Well, you said, Father Peter, kissing the warm hand of Saint Mary Magdalene. Like what?
2,000 years later, after she touched the resurrected Christ, it's still warm. There's little things like that that I think, God willing, will be a part of this documentary, which will point in a non-discursive but very powerful and very immense amount of meaning is just going to come pouring over the screen to the viewer, and we don't have, you know, there's nothing to be said. It's just going to be obvious to everyone what that implies. So I think that's. I also think we don't really know. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to this documentary. We're not pre-planning everything. In fact, we're not pre-planning a lot of it. We're going to let it just kind of happen. And I think that's going to be it's going to be a tightrope. We're going to walk a tightrope, and it's intentional, and it could go bad. we could crash and burn, but we're going to do that intentionally because we don't want to prejudge and make it fabricated. And at the end of the day, we want it to be an organic thing that you feel that this was a journey, and it will be a journey, and we're going to discover it as we go. And there's nothing I'm not fearful at all about that, because I
know you've been weird about that. I thought you were going to be
shine all the more, right? Because it's going to be an organic, real experience, and it's going to be much more impressive than some kind of I don't know what do you call it? You know, systematic, prepared. From the beginning, we've got it all figured out. I think that.
Well, I just have to apologize to my brother, because during this movie experience, which is, guys, it's sad, but it's kind of the only time we've been talking lately. I got to tell you, I'm learning about a whole new guy. He's not the 5-year-old guy anymore, DPH. It's kind of nutty. Like, he's like,
that would have been
really,
40.
He's like creatively inclined. He's like, I feel like he's going to wear one of those French hats, like one of those little painter hats, and be like, I think we should have a moment of the spirit right now. Like, I'm waiting. It's freaky. It's kind of scaring me, actually. There's a whole new.
You're bringing out his artistic side.
I know, man. It's impressive. A whole new world. Sorry. Right now, everyone's like, did he just quote Disney? Yes, is the answer. I hate Disney too. Don't worry. But it was there on the tip of my tongue.
Well, I was going to make a comment in regards to bringing together a few themes and threads that have already been mentioned, so that John just mentioned about the beauty and the aesthetics being presented through the documentary. And I kind of made a comment about the truth of the historical facts of it all. And then earlier you mentioned regards to cult formation, generally speaking, not talking about cults in the contemporary new religious movement sense, but the formation of culture, which comes from cult, is that it's an orientation towards the good. And so by incorporating the historical geographical facts of it all, and then incorporating the aesthetics, I mean, you are pointing towards the good, the true, the good, and the beautiful, right?
That's exactly right.
You are making an apologetic argument, because it's going to come down to, and people, if they follow the journey, it's going to come down to Catholicism or Orthodoxy, by looking at the historical facts and the aesthetics of it all. And
could I take that on for a minute? And then Father Peter, you can go at it. So, okay. I think you might be right that there's an argument in the end. Only in the sense that human beings make meaning. And so at the end of the film, just like at the end of a baseball game and the New York Mets won, I'm making meaning out of that moment. Unlikely. I'm making meaning out of that. And because I went there as a fan, or because at the end of the movie, I'm trying to figure, I do agree that will happen. I don't know if that's the same as making an argument, though. I would say this: it's a natural moment of decision making, but making an argument, it feels more discursive, rational. It feels like I'm trying to win. Making argument has the feel of winning. Now, I know you might not mean that, But
Mhm.
but a beautiful film done properly should not be done as a hope for a win.
Right.
I think that's one of the problems with evangelical. Let me put it differently: not evangelicals. It's a problem with missionary work in general since the Enlightenment.
Mm. Mm.
Is everyone's out to win an argument? I mean, the Jesuits were birthed in order to defeat people in arguments. Like,
Right.
it's weird. It's a weird
And look
concept.
where they are now.
I know. So I hear you. I know what you mean. People will have to decide. I
Right.
do think that's different than making an argument, though.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Lord didn't really engage in arguments, did he?
No.
He kind of just stated the truth, and then he's let people decide. Sure, he got pretty harsh with the Pharisees. Before Pilate, he kind of left Pilate to go ahead and do what he wanted to do, which was to acquiesce to the Jews. I mean, there is I think it's a failure on the part of Christianity. If you're going to represent Christianity, it's a failure to end up always forcing everybody into the rationalistic argumentation for Christ. Like it's a poverty. It's impoverished at that point.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. So where are some of the locations you guys plan to travel? You've mentioned potentially Turkey, Georgia, Greece, obviously, if you're
Greece.
going to Mount Athos. You
Greece.
mentioned Africa. Do you plan on making a stop in Africa? What about Russia?
There's two choices in Africa, at least associated with my work, which makes it easy. I know a lot of people. West Africa, Sierra Leone, which has a very interesting Christianities. Mozambique's the other one under the Portuguese. Both of those are possible. They're expensive.
Are they Pentecostal? I know that in Africa, Pentecostalism is quickly growing.
Well, that's the whole thing with that Petri dish is what you find anywhere around the world, you find there. So there's the gospel of wealth. Then there's hierarchical churches. There's, you see bishops. You see everything you see there in a tiny little microcosm called Sierra Leone. It's because they're experimenting, and they're experimenting differently because there is an explosion after independence. You got to realize. So underneath it all is juju, right? Is the traditional religions, and they're informing whatever Christianity has been put on top. And it's fascinating. So those are two places. Father Peter, we haven't had this battle yet, but I know some really interesting people in Ethiopia we could talk to. And that's I don't know if you want to go down that road. By the way, guys, you can see that a lot of this is coming, which just makes it kind of fun. We don't know all the answers.
I think a lot of it's going to depend, unfortunately, on our funding. I mean, we have to take a team, at least 3, maybe 4 people every time we get in a plane, and then we got days of filming. And of course, you're going to film like 300% more than you're going to use in the actual documentary. So a lot of it will depend on that, but we want to do that. That's our desire. We think it's essential that we go to these places for the sake of the fullness of the documentary and the message. And
we're going to Ireland.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Ireland's,
England for sure. We want to talk to a number of people in the UK, and Ireland's one of them. Yeah.
Those are both booked or ish. That's happening.
Any Central or South America?
Well, we have great possibilities to interview people in Guatemala where there is such a mix. Father Peter, we could talk to men on the street interviews with Mormons in Guatemala, with Guatemalan Mormons. Talk about interesting.
Well, Utah should just be one of your destinations.
Yeah. So I think what's going to be interesting is that the juxtaposition and the contrast is going to just really be fascinating for people. Because if we succeed in that, and it'll speak volumes to the problem, which is Christianities with a IES. That's the problem, and the solution hopefully will also be apparent because of that contrast in one place. Whereas, mostly it's always it's isolated. Like you're encountering the Mormon at your front door and then maybe the evangelical on your television screen, and then the Orthodox guy, or that. And so I think that just the juxtaposition and the contrast is going to be really fascinating.
I did get an invitation to literally go to the Vatican to talk to a Roman Catholic lawyer. I know you guys were waiting for something else, but all I got is a lawyer.
Perfect representation of their theology. Well, in our conversation, one I hate to say denomination, but one form of Christianity that we haven't mentioned is the Oriental Orthodox Church. Are they going to be presented, or the Church of the East? Are they going to have a role in the film at all?
We'll see. I don't think we've even discussed that, but I mean, we're not opposed to it. Again, it'll depend on if we go, for instance, to Jerusalem. If there's not a war going on, I think there you can have tons of conversations with tons of different people, and it would be extremely.
So Jerusalem is in the production schedule that I've created.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Well, God willing, you guys will be able to go.
Yeah, yeah. I really think it's important to go to the tomb of Christ and look at that right there. I've been there twice. It's extremely instructive and fascinating. So hopefully that can happen.
Right. Seems like, somebody mentioned Coptic Christians would have a interesting perspective.
For sure. No, that's an invite. We have entree in that world. The other is, Father Peter, I don't know if we talked about it too. It's on our schedule, but I've got a few inroads to the stylite who is in Georgia. He's an actual stylite who's on a pillar as we speak. His pillar is a big giant pillar with a little tiny church at the top. Wow. He's really hard to talk to, but he comes down. And my friends live in the village just down the road. And they're like, we see him. So totally possible.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
On the list.
Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow for Cyprus and then Athos, sorry. And so one of my goals here is to pave the way for future interviews for the documentary in this trip right here. So God willing, we'll come back with some good news.
Will you be meeting Metropolitan Neophytos?
I will. On Monday the 19th, I got a meeting. And I'll also be speaking in the in one of the dioceses there in 3 different times. So hopefully we'll have a lot of opportunities to open the doors in Cyprus, but also on Athos. Athos is one of the hardest places actually to do anything because they don't really like cameras very much. They don't do documentaries, most of the monks. They're not interested in sitting down in front of a camera. A few of them are, but it's going to be interesting how many doors are going to open for us.
I don't want to, DPH, I don't want to hear about it. This is when he has to, supposedly is like a Greek guy who's got connections in Greece. Let's go.
We're going to open the doors. We'll see. No, we can definitely get interviews with the Athenites. It's going to take some time to work on it, but we'll get
bona fides, baby. Let's see if you got some bona fides.
Will the Athenites be one of the few monastics that you guys will interview?
That's a good question. I don't know. Probably, but we also want to go to some of the holy places in America. Like I'd like to go to St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. I'd like to go to St. Anthony's Monastery in Arizona. These are probably the most prominent, holy places in the Western world for the Orthodox Church. So,
Simon Sianka has invited us to meet his people up in Alaska, where he shot his film Sacred Alaska. So all of St. Herman's.
I've heard good things. I obviously haven't seen it. I think there's a showing here in Indiana in one of the movie theaters in I think a month or so. Maybe it's in October.
Yeah, he's got them all over on his website. I highly recommend. That film's very, very, very beautiful.
Yeah. You just talked to him yesterday, a couple of days. You did a podcast with him, right?
I did. Go check it out on our website. It's up. Sorry, DPH. At www.first.
Feel free. You can promote anything. What is the website? Good. I can share it.
It's first-things.org. First Things.
And that's on YouTube, though. That's on your Heavy Things Lightly, right?
Yeah. So that's the sort of media part of our work.
First-things?
Yeah, www.first-things.org. Not the word dash, but a dash.
Right.
One of the things that's happening is, there it is. One of the things that's happening is our work, which is essentially like spiritual Peace Corps or type of Orthodox Peace Corps. It sends people for 2 years to live really on the ground, like mud huts, and to live very simply among local people who are suffering. Well, let me put it different. They're suffering like we all suffer, but they're impoverished in some way. And our guys start projects with local people who we might call entrepreneurs. One of the advantages to the film is I think this is illumined stuff for our men and women that work for us, but it's illumined stuff for me. And it's giving me a way to understand humanity outside of the Western box. Like, and not in light ways, guys, not in inconsequential ways, like speaking 4 languages. When you speak a language, your mind starts to change. And so there's something that's really good about our work and this film. They go together. And I really am excited to demonstrate some of that cultural reality outside of our own, not because I'm so interested in it as a theological statement, but because it's fascinating. And it gives you perspective. And that's one of the things the film's trying to do, is open this up a little bit. Like, let's open it up a little bit, guys. It's a little tight in America.
That's for sure. Well, like you were talking about with identity, I mean, even though America compared to Europe has a higher identification as Christian, I think it's a difficult claim to make that we're still a Christian nation based on our culture and what our biggest exports are.
Porn, you mean?
Yeah, porn, LGBTQ, war, the military-industrial complex.
Bombs. Yeah. We should stop doing that. we won't.
Do you think that those who've always held America as a Christian country, do you think that they're starting to get a little bit concerned about the state of things? I mean, do they realize that actually maybe on one level there's millions and millions of Christians, people follow Christ, want to be Christians, believe themselves to be disciples of Christ, want to, all that. But as a country, with the principles that have always been laid down, I've never understood how people think it's a Christian country when it's clearly Enlightenment ideals and Masonic.
I'm with you.
And Masonic, symbolism everywhere in the government. I've never understood that. Like, maybe that'll be part of our discussion. Like, the Christianity that people are representing.
This is really important for people to know. It has to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. There are these twin babies born. If you look at the century, if you look at the history, there's these twin babies born. And it's some type of Christianity as individualism, call it Reformation or whatever, and something like science as salvation. And there's these twin little babies born at the same time, and they are really close and hugging it up for a long time until finally the science baby drank all the milk and started beating the little individual Christianity baby in the head. And now the little baby is wandering around going, what happened? And the big science baby is running the show. That's what's happened. And I don't know how anybody can debate that. They can try, but there's no way for me.
Well, in America from its onset was a ecumenical Christian project by those Protestant faiths that were persecuted, elsewhere. And it is difficult to make the argument that we're still a Christian nation, but I do think part of the political divide and what the MAGA movement represents, whether we would as Orthodox agree with it or not, I believe, at least coming from the Midwest and the people that I talk to, it is an attempt to hold on to what they perceive as the Christian heritage of America. And I think that's one of the reasons why even Donald Trump chose J.D. Vance as opposed to Vivek Ramaswamy, is because there is a deliberate intention that we want to preserve this American traditional Christian heritage, even though it is Masonic, it is ecumenical, it is Protestant, it is Enlightenment.
It is Israel. Oh,
yeah, it is Zionist. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I don't understand with Trump, that why he doesn't just make on the campaign trail right now, just say that no more war. Like, he's appealing to the no war during his administration, but he's giving lip service to a war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And he would be able to get so many more people on that side of the fence if he just said no war whatsoever. We're done.
Because there's forces underneath. There's deep forces in that ocean, bro.
Absolutely.
It's called the money. The money would dry up in about a couple hours.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
But I think that you pointed again to the whole question of security and insecurity today. And so, we're trying to hold on to what we have. And what we need to ask questions like, how do we get here? That's true for Americans, true for the political history of America. We're doing the same thing now with this documentary that is happening all over the place. There's people are re-examining, reassessing their roots or the lack of. And so I think that's why maybe this is the moment for a documentary like Christianities. There's as John says in the trailer, there's a cultural moment here that we need to stop and say, wait a minute, actually, unless you get that straight and you figure out where we came from, how we got here, there is no future.
I love that.
The future is dark.
Can I share a moment from a podcast I did
Sure.
with Justin Briley? Is that okay, DPH?
Yeah.
Justin Briley over on our Heavy Things Lightly podcast. Justin Briley, my two friends here don't know, but this guy, someone out there is going, I know about him. He was arguing he had a podcast called Unbelievable, and he was arguing with atheists, the new atheists, since like 2003. And I caught his podcast a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this English evangelical. Okay. Right. Justin Briley's very sweet, young. He's a cool dude. I had him on the podcast and I was like psyched, and I realized nobody cared about it because he's over in England and he's evangelical. But in England, guys, and in Europe, he's a huge voice. And it was really fascinating because on our podcast, the movie hadn't yet been an idea, but I was sharing with him movie-like ideas, these kind of ideas. And we agreed. And then he said, but don't you see that we Christians, people are going to come search us out because the other story is collapsing. And I said, absolutely. But who's us? And I literally went, you guys always say the church. And they're speaking about like the world. What is the church? And guess what happened on the call? And I love him. And this isn't bad. Right away, I could see him go, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. And later on, we talked, and he was like, it's not time for that conversation yet. And I told him, I think it's like one of those nickels. You guys ever been to McDonald's? And your little kid's like, I want to give this nickel to the poor. And then it's that red thing.
Yeah.
And it goes around and around. And then the quarter's going down. We're out on the edges talking about, like the world is going to come back to God. But if we don't know where the church is, and I talked about it with him, I don't know what our answer is when people come back. And that's what the movie's about. There's too many Christianities to receive this flood of people who have decided, you know what, there's no meaning in the other side. And we got to go to the bottom. But how we get there is really important. If you're out on the edge, you can't talk like you're on the bottom or in the deep, dark, mysterium. You got to start with a certain conversation to the outside. And that's the way I saw the movie. And I love Justin Briley, but you could see him go, not time for that. You're going to ruin the movement in Europe. We're like babies. Everyone hates Christians. Don't make us look like we're fighting each other. Really interesting.
Yeah. So that's another insecurity, right? It's another insecurity that people, he's probably right. He's right. Maybe he's right, but
let's put it this way, as a war tactic or something like that, like as a long-term strategic plan, I get what he's saying. It's not, it's not nutty.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
But at the same time, I know this is outside the peer view of the intention of the film, but those Protestant faiths are dying, right?
Yeah.
I on one of my streams, I showed the Pew Research poll on religions in the United States and the average age of attendance, and the youngest ages, generally speaking, were like Orthodoxy, Islam, Hinduism, and then almost all the Protestant faiths were 60 or above. And so not only are they losing converts, but in a generation, their whole congregation is going to be deceased. What are they going to do?
Yeah, it's a race against time, and that's why you got to get real quick to the first things.
Come back to the meat. Yeah, yep. I agree. I also understand his nervousness about it.
Mormonism was up there too. Mormonism was with the four: Islam, Hinduism, Orthodoxy.
Wait, Mormonism in the United States?
In regards to the average age of attendee, they were in the like high 30s.
Those cats keep it together, man. I tried to date a Mormon in high school. She was like, fat chance, bro. That's not happening. You're not a Mormon. Stay clear.
Right.
That happened.
Yeah. Strong in-group preference. That's for sure.
I think you're happy you didn't date that Mormon brother.
Mom was happy. She was like, really? That's what you're going to do? I was like, whatever. She's pretty. They're so pretty. That's David. You talk about that stuff. You know how it goes.
Absolutely. When is the intention for the release of the documentary? Do you have at least a expectation? Obviously, things are going to emerge. Who knows?
I'm going 1 year when I sit down and do the math.
Yeah.
That stinks though. That stinks for people. They're like, I'm not giving any money in a year. I don't even know if I'm gonna be alive.
Those things aren't done overnight.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah. No, it'll be a year. I would say this time next year would be awesome. Maybe June, but that would be the best case scenario. It all depends really on, the director, how quick we can do the production, how many trips we can make, and then he's got to sit down and put it all together. So it's hard to say. He would know better than we. This is
I do think this is going to happen too. I think this is a 4 to 5 part show on Netflix or something. I think it's one of those. I think it ends up being there. I don't know that it's just an hour and a half. I really don't think so.
Did you know that was like 4 comments under our live stream? Exactly that, saying there's no way this is going to be a 1 out. It's going to be a series. They were saying.
It's got to, yeah. With the amount of travel and interview film that you guys are going to have,
there's so much rich stuff.
I mean, easily 4 distinct episodes with different emphasis. That, I mean, you're going to have so much content.
So what do they usually make these and then they do a serial afterwards? Isn't that how it works? So they keep it going?
No, we're going to realize, well, here's what's happened. Just so everybody's like, do they even know they're doing a film? They're like, when is it coming out? What? Guys, here's how it works. Okay. We've penned it. We've got the storyboard. We know where we want to go. Not all that stuff is going to be, we can't say it all because it's not in our advantage. And also we don't want to mislead people, but
right.
the story is clear and ready to go. The director's ready to go and knows what he's doing. And I'm blessed to be able to help out and donate my time to an extent. And so is my brother. So you should be asking, why aren't they answering these questions clearly? Because that's just not the way films work. It's just not. It's just
1 episode per continent.
right. But what we can say is it won't be cheap. That was one of the things that the people that were relying on to consult with us, they're all like, whatever you do, don't make it cheap. Make it beautiful. Make it good. And so that's what we're working on.
Right. Did you happen to see the large, I think it was an Episcopalian or Anglican, could have been Catholic, but a massive church in Buffalo, New York that just got purchased by Muslims, and it's going to be the first mosque with a call to prayer will be in Buffalo, New York.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's really tragic. That's been going on in the UK.
It would have been a beautiful Orthodox church, and they only purchased it from the article I read was like $270,000.
What?
Yes, and it was all, I mean, stained glass, Gothic architecture.
It would have cost millions to build,
unless they got some government deal, or who knows. But it was just amazing they got it that cheap, and it is kind of again indicative of the point that the documentary is trying to make is the loss of faith, the loss of identity, and with everything that's going on in the UK right now, it's a real issue, and the fact that people can't even speak about it, I mean, it's just putting it's putting the issues in like a crock pot. It's just eventually it's going to blow up.
Yeah, I thought, Peter, you could speak to this. I don't see any way with that news and all the news. now even new atheism is broken apart. Everybody realizes that, right? New
Yeah,
atheism is not even a thing.
Richard Dawkins called himself a cultural
Yeah,
Christian like 4 months ago.
In other words, even if you want to identify as a new atheist, good luck with that. That doesn't even really work anymore. It has to be that the tide rolls in towards something very traditional. But I don't know if it can hold. And I know that there are some prophecies where there's a rush into the church and then they rush back out because they get persecuted. That feels like what's happening deep down. That's what it feels like.
Right. Which then, and we can wrap it up. We got a few questions and we can answer those, but it gets back to finding a fortress, a spiritual fort that you can get behind the walls.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, getting back to the point of the film, you have all these different places that are claiming to be safe havens for your faith, for your spiritual well-being. And yet, as we're seeing, many of them really aren't going to stand the test of time. And so figuring out which ones have and still are doing that is obviously going to be pretty powerful for those searching for it.
Quick comment.
Yeah.
On that, don't hate me, anyone out there. Today, I was invited. Part of my job, the part of my job is to make networks, create networks, and raise funds for First Things Foundation. Totally privately funded. I want everyone to know that. So when you give $10, it matters a lot. Please go do that. But I got invited by a wonderful guy. I won't say his name. A beautiful guy, evangelical guy, to go to a lunch-ish thing. I didn't know really what it was. He said, bring your Bible. I was in a car rushing back to get to this podcast after leaving that place. And here's what it was. And this is, you talked about behind the walls, the ramparts, people. It was literally a room packed with like businessmen from Greenville who all brought their Bible and spent lunch listening to a pastor type guy read Acts 3, 1 through 13. It's when Peter heals. It's, sort of out of the blue, Peter's healing people at the beautiful gate. And here's what I'm trying to say. I'm sitting there and they said, grab a Bible. They had a whole bunch of them. And I just sat there. But I saw people behind the ramparts, DPH. I saw it. Now, what is that to our film? Because that happened. They were actually quite beautiful. People were very vulnerable, and the men were speaking in ways that are not far off from ways we would speak. Now, there were some moments. The whole idea of the church is so foreign in that room. It's crazy. But
right.
Other than that, there was a type of compatibility. Now, I get it. Maybe I shouldn't even have been there. The Bible's out. Am I praying with them? I'm happy to take a hit on that in the comments. If you guys want to do that, go ahead.
Heretic.
Yeah, here we go.
Name.
Rip it. But I left and had coffee with Kyle and another friend. And I want you guys to know, driving home, man, that moment was ripe for helping me understand this film. And that's not why I went. I went because I really like this guy, and I'm trying to figure out if they're interested in helping me with First Things. But anyway, and by the way, they were beautiful. So what do I say? What do you guys think about that?
Well, to continue our metaphor, I think it's indicative that there's a lot of potential warriors for Christ out there. Maybe their battle plans and their forts that they're behind aren't as sturdy, strong, and withstanding of military might that others are. And so eventually, whether it's now or in the future, those forts are going to collapse, and those soldiers are going to have to find a new place for shelter.
Wow. That's solid. Father Peter, are you checking off on that?
It works. It works.
I like it. Right now we're scared. He's like, incorrect.
I'm looking at this question. There's a bunch of questions.
Go ahead.
Answer.
Yeah, we got.
Which one
are you looking at?
Time. Sorry. True though. We've been going a long time.
This one?
Forgive me.
Just start whatever you want to start. Let's do it.
This one is, I have a question for Father Heers. Is trying to make as much money as we can to serve the church. For example, the mega church could have been bought and gifted by an Orthodox person.
I'm not really sure the question. What's the question?
Well,
should we be trying to make money so that we can invest that back into the faith or opportunities for people to explore the faith. Maybe that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think the hierarchy starts there. No, I mean, that's a part of it, but that's not what the Lord says in the gospel. He says, seek the kingdom of heaven and all else should be added unto you. So it's not like we make that the top priority. Is it good, to have resources and have funds and have people who support? Of course, but you never can do a good thing in a bad way. So if that's implying that like we change around the hierarchy and we start doing things in a worldly way to get money, no, that's not how you go about it.
So you don't want me to be a venture capitalist for the next 6 months and then fund the film?
Nor start an OnlyFans.
Oh man, I was just about to do it. I've been working out.
Yeah, that's a hard saying, but that's the reality. God will take care of it. You got to trust God.
Dalton has a question. Thank you so much, Dalton, for the support. He says, can you ask on why the budget is so, I think he meant big. Shane Carruth made the Oscar-worthy and cinematically beautiful film Upstream Color for $60,000 around 10 years ago.
I like this question, Shane. I mean, no, this isn't Shane. This is Dalton.
Yeah. You go ahead. I got something to say, but go ahead, John. Tell him what you think.
Well, here's the thing. When I saw the number go up there too, I was like, what's Father Peter doing? It's a massive number because we both said, let's let them decide. So we can do it for that or more or less. Here's the thing. Scooter is good at his job and we don't want to lose him. I'm doing it for free. Don't tell my first things, guys. They get pissed about this.
Nor your wife.
Yeah. Oh man, that's another one. Let's not do this. Let's scrub that. Father Peter's doing it for free. His wife is also upset. And so, so the problem is travel can be expensive, but we think we need to do it. And as we get closer to reality, it may be that some of these wonderful places we don't go to. But I'm gonna fight hard for the places. Fight hard, and God can provide.
So I guess the question would be Upstream Color. Did it travel all around the world? Did it have a crew? Did it do? I mean, that would we got to look at this. What's going on in that documentary? Each documentary is not the same. So, and it was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, things were a lot cheaper. Inflation, all the rest. So I mean, the numbers are not. We didn't choose the numbers. Numbers are told to us on the basis of the costs. So we sat down with the director and he said, this is what it's going to cost if we want to do a good project. So
yeah, that's kind of the answer. Thanks for clearing my
my immediate thought was the travel and the inflation as well. 10 years ago was a totally different economy. And you guys are, again, based on if you go to the locations you already described, that's thousands of dollars.
So, I said to the director, can't we do some interviews online or something? He's like, absolutely not. That ain't happening.
Right. Right.
It would lower the quality, especially if it was on Netflix or something like that. It wouldn't feel the same.
Although if we do hit our numbers, I would like to get paid. I'm putting that on the record right now.
You got to write that into the contract.
Come on, man. What do you guys want me to get divorced over here? Come on.
You got a daughter in college, don't you?
I know. Well, she just graduated. Supposedly she's on her own. Right. Find that out next week. I'm hungry.
Thank you so much, Josiah Elleron, for gifting a COTEL Crew membership to the chat. Thank you very much, brother, for your support.
Right on, Josiah.
And then over on Donut Chat, we had a question by CJ. He says, why don't they make more big budget films on Orthodox saints? I'd love to see one made on Saint Gabriel and Saint Moses. Any saint is going to be a prolific film, wildly entertaining, and certainly a success in film creation.
I think that's true.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to do anything about saints, though, in an authentic way. Forgive me, but
what'd you think of the movie Man of God?
I thought it was good for what she tried to do, but
you were upset it was in English, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, that didn't help. But I mean, she's tremendous, and I don't want to take it away at all. I just think that you're doing the impossibility. It's an impossibility, really, because anybody who's met holy men who may be declared saints, in a few decades, there's no way you can act that. It's impossible. So I think that it's, there's a lot of these attempts in Greek. Actually, in Greece, you have all kinds of these saint films made by like little, mom and pop Greek movie places, and they're terrible. They remind me of it's like only for like 4-year-olds.
Oh, okay.
So I just don't think I think it's very, very difficult to do a convincing movie of a saint. I think it's a great thing that they tried to do it. I'm just telling you that it's hard. It's very hard to do.
What are your favorite Orthodox films?
Yeah,
The
great
Island.
question.
The Island.
Yeah.
I was gonna. Well,
Bro.
actually, that's what we're doing for men's group this coming Saturday. I'll be leading the men's group, and we're gonna watch The Island and then talk about it afterwards.
I was blown away. There was I'm not gonna say his name. It was a prominent bishop in America who didn't like it, and I just was like blown away. Like, how could you not like it?
That's a great film.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's clearly taken from Lives of the Saints. Like it's almost like 1-to-1 from the Saint Theophilus of Kiev, the Fool for Christ. Some of the stuff. It's very accurate.
Well, they did if you liked it, they did it, and it is sort of a life of a saint.
Right, but it's not a life of a saint, a particular saint.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
That's much better than trying to actually reproduce Saint so-and-so.
So you're not big on Jesus films like Franco Zeffirelli doing like soft lighting on Jesus?
No,
those are tough. Those are tough.
We religiously watched the 10 Commandments of Charles Heston for the kids, but
you gotta stop. You gotta stop doing.
What about Mel Gibson's The Resurrection? Should be coming out in a year or so.
By the way,
if
I don't care. I know if I say I like Mel, everyone's gonna scream.
I like Mel.
I like Mel. Not on here, maybe, but here's what I'm trying to say. Good movie maker, though. Stuff gets crazy. I don't know why it got to be so much blood, Mel, but other than that, man,
because he's a hardcore traditionalist Catholic. That's what they.
Oh, there's a straight line
he's
there.
Almost a set of a contest.
Was that?
He's almost a SETI. Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
he's very traditional Catholic.
Yeah,
against Vatican II Catholic.
Well, I'm really interested to see what he's going to do with the resurrection, because that's not their strong suit in the West. So let's see what they do with that. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll have a harrowing of Hades and stuff like that in it.
I think he does. I've actually read that he does. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then John Anon says, great stream, great project. Everyone should support the Christianities documentary, assuming success. What are your thoughts about a sequel or following projects or potential future collaborations?
Ooh. Father Peter, you answer that. I got to do first things or I'm going to get fired.
Well, Holy Wisdom Films is what we've launched here. And so that's... there's certainly something that we're going to be doing in the works, but we're not going to talk about it. We're going to stay focused on Christianities right now, so we're not going to talk about future works. But it would be in a similar vein, I think, because it's going to be, of course, Orthodox oriented.
So then you're saying no to me and you as cops, like the other guys.
Good cop, bad cop, Orthodox,
bad cop show. I want to do a movie where you're a bad cop.
One of the things that we were discussing privately but didn't mention in the stream was the style in which the documentary was being filmed. I think it might have been before you actually hopped on, John. Father Peter and I were speaking, and the way that Scooter, or at least the trailer, is presented seems much more accessible for just the general observer. It's not necessarily an erudite. I'm not trying to take away from it. Like, it's not about deep theology or something that you have to really think about as much. It seems like it's really appealing just to anybody. Could you speak to a little bit about maybe the intention, or maybe there was an intention, or that Scooter just did it? What is the style or the approach, at least, that we could take from the trailer?
I'll weigh in for 2 seconds. I won't go on and on. Again, it's host takes willing participant for a delicious meal and a profound journey into the heart of what it means to be alive as a Christian. And so food, drink, and variations on dumb guy, because when you're going to eat and drink and stay close to people, you don't talk as if you're about to rip like Canon 7 from the Third Ecumenical Council. Like, it's not consistent. Now it may get there. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But the invite is to the earth, not to the heaven. And I say that as a way of expressing imagery. It's earthen doesn't mean it's dumb, but it's earthen, and we'll move into heaven. We'll move into the higher ideas, the ethereal ideas, but we start in the earth. So if that makes any sense, that's sort of the plan of the film.
Well, in the way the trailer was, the quick jump cuts, the kind of just texture of the filmography feels very contemporary. It feels like something that'd be on Netflix for a mass audience.
We want that.
Right.
Yeah. That's the earth, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I
you know,
agree.
if you try to go too high, too fast, sadly, most of society
you'll just preach to the choir, which is
right, exactly. We end up with
somebody asked, "What's the target public of this movie?" And I think that's exactly what it should come across in the trailer: is that our target is contemporary young America and people who are searching. And so maybe the nuns or nons or whatever you call them, and
nuns,
others,
NONEs,
and others that are maybe going to church or part of a Christian denomination, but really they're not. There is no rudder for them.
I have a prototype. I was driving in my car. I got a call from a number that was still the number from over 10 years ago, more 14 years ago, when I was teaching down in a school in Florida called Seacrest. And it was from a student who was a secular kid. Okay. Super secular, who's now like he's a lawyer, and he saw the trailer and he goes, "Count me in. I can't believe that thing. That looks so cool. I'm going to go see your movie." And he had my number from 14 years ago. Wow. That's the kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's not Christian, is not going to church. He's not
super secular, but not like a hater either.
Right.
Just, you know,
yeah.
And I believe that's exactly the audience that we need to appeal to. Again, referring back to our military metaphor, getting potential soldiers to figure out where to orient themselves and what forts to find to take shelter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the heart of everything in the gospel is the call to repentance, and so misunderstood, because all it means is reorient to Christ, return to Christ. That's what it means. It's not a moralistic thing. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not remorse. It's reorientation. And so this movie is really all about orienting toward the light. And so people are looking for the light, and there's a lot of darkness and a lot of confusion, and they're insecure and I think
loneliness.
Loneliness and all that. So I think that if we can achieve that, if out of the darkness comes the light, and people, first of all, they gain self-knowledge, and then they can turn around and say, "Oh, I get where we were, how we got here," and then it's almost like a no-brainer. Okay, what do I need to do? Like we don't need to preach any of that. It's just going to be apparent once you come to knowledge of how we got where we are, how we got here. I think we're in the dark about that, and I think it's intentional. I think there's actually I'm a conspiracy theorist in this way. I think there's an intentional demonic and human. Yeah. I'm sorry. The demonic and human like attempt to say, just look all day at the internet and Netflix and don't worry about anything else. Like stay away from knowledge of yourself or history. So,
well, and even in the academia, I mean, very little is talked about, at least in the American context, about Byzantium, right? Yeah, you hardly when you learn about history.
It's nuts.
It begins with the fall of Rome and then Charlemagne, and it just skips a whole period of history. And it's amazing how few people in the West are even familiar with Byzantium and the Eastern Roman Empire.
I taught it. I taught world history for 9 years, 10 years. Bro, it's not in the books. Like, I don't know how to explain it. They're like, and then also some stuff over there. And then let's keep going. It's not in the books. Like, you have to do it on the side. It's crazy.
Yeah. This is high school, New York City, huh? Is that what you're
New York City, also down in Florida. I mean, we didn't do it the same way when we started the school down there. We didn't even use textbooks. But the point being, if we had, you're talking about one of the briefest explanations of a culture that there was in the whole book.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this comment up just real quick. The audience that Jordan Peterson is pulling, but orient it to Orthodoxy. I think, again, that'd be phenomenal, given the mass appeal of the potential film, is that, Jordan Peterson certainly has a very large following and has a sort of rationalistic, symbolic approach to the faith, but many of the people who follow him are wanting to know more. That'd be phenomenal to try to grab some of that audience.
Oh, that's happening. Because Peterson's an ecumenist by nature, not because he's evil or wrong or something. It's the only explanation he can have until he actually jumps in. There's no other way to have an explanation. So it's his people are going to go to the same place he is, which is like Christianity. What's that again? And then it's going to be a mess. And then he's going to have to figure it out. And so, yeah, that's what this is for. It's so nice.
Absolutely. And then the last one came from Teacup. I'm sorry, Father, were you getting ready to say something?
Somebody's asking also, George, will it have subs in other languages? And the good news is we've already got 2 people offering to translate the entire thing into Portuguese. And then what was the other one? Was it Greek? Somebody else reached out. So I'm hopeful that we'll have subtitles at least for everybody.
Excellent. And last one was Teacup Milk Nugget threw in $5 and just said, Godspeed to you men for all your work. Thank you, DPH. Well, thank you very much, Teacup Milk Nugget.
what that's like, what's all that about? I mean,
that was awesome. That was a foreign language. That's the 5th one I now speak.
Teacup Milk Nugget.
Teacup Milk Nugget. I speak DPHEs. Milk Nugget, Jack, Vega channel food, yummy time.
You never know what handles you're gonna get. But
I want to say one other thing is that a lot of our missionary work is directed toward other Christians who are searching. Like the vast majority of people probably becoming Orthodox in America right now are people who are serious Christians in Catholicism or Protestantism is my guess. I'm just guessing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But in any case, I don't know if there's a lot of intentional, let's talk to the people who walked away from it all or are really disillusioned by it all. So hopefully this will fill a gap in some way. Yeah,
absolutely.
And one other thing, can I just say this? Guys, it's just going to be fun to watch. It's going to be intriguing. Right. It should be where you're just like popcorn on the couch. I know I'm always the cotton candy guy in this conversation with my brother, the priest. But you know the value of being able to sit and enjoy and learn and actually not have to imagine yourself in some argument with someone. It's quite a valuable thing. Yes. And we should do that. So,
yeah, it's going to be a true adventure and journey. That's why it's not all pre-planned. We'll just have to wait and see. Also,
we've been talking a long time, DPH. Your people are good, man. They probably like, get these guys off now.
No. They love you guys. But I do appreciate we have a good community over here.
It's awesome.
But anyway, is there anything else you guys would like to mention or we didn't cover before we hop off here? Again, just a reminder for everybody, I'm going to share the link again to the Indiegogo page. So if you would like to support the project.
I want to say this about the Indiegogo page. You know, people say, like me, I don't have any money. John doesn't have any money. We're not rich. I won't speak for you, but I certainly don't. So it's people say, well, I can't really help get you to your goal. But actually, what's important is that the backers numbers goes up by hundreds, because when we're done with this, we're going to go to private funding. We're going to go to people who do have the means, and we're going to ask them. And if they see that there were 500 people, even if it was $5 each, that actually means that there's a big base or a big interest in this, right? Yeah, so it's not just the number. We reached the number of the goal, but we have a huge outpouring of people who want to see this movie happen. That's a really important thing for this post Indiegogo page.
Right. And we didn't mention, but just to make a point, through your contributions, there are different tiers of contributions. And so getting your name in the film for 25.
I got to talk about that before we hang off. I got to definitely
go ahead.
We go to the last. So there's all kinds of perks here. You can see them right there on the page. There's, DVD, the film, see the film first, go on site bloopers, Q&A with the filmmakers, screenings. The very last one, there's 2 actually at the end that are really expensive, but they're really awesome. And that is Visit the Republic of Georgia with John, who goes there twice a year, and Come to Monastic with Father Peter, who also goes about twice a year. And so we've already got 4 people. Actually, we got 5, one offline, and a 6th one who's talking about doing it. So that's been extremely helpful. And I want to invite everybody who has the means to do this, help the film in a big way, and then come with us to Mount Athos and have a on-site personal experience of Athos. I've probably been, living there for 20 years, just in the shadow of Athos. I've probably been about 50 times. And next week I'll be there again, and I'm going to be taking about 8 or 9 people, including one of their donors who's coming with us immediately right after the donation. He wants to come. The others will be coming probably in the winter, God willing. And I'm going to be taking them to a number of monasteries, Kelia, like St. Paisios of the Athenite, where he lived, and the fathers who live there now who are well known to me. We'll be going to the desert of Athos, which is Katonakia, where St. Ephrem of Katonakia lived. We're going to go venerate his relics. We're going to go where St. Joseph the Hesychist lived, his cell on the side of the mountain there. That if you've seen some of our publications, in fact, the latest one we just put out, this student planner, on the cover of that is where we're going to go. That's the cell on the side of the mountain where St. Joseph and his brotherhood lived.
Wow.
And we're going to be going to another cell of an American monk who is living there, a friend of mine. We went to theological school together. We're going to be going to his very remote house, monastic house. So it's going to be a really off the beaten tracks, unique experience for anybody who wants to really discover Athos. I've been going since 1996, and when I first went, there's a little tiny boat. You took a little boat. It was about maybe 50 people, maybe 75 people. It's hard to know. I don't remember exactly the number, but it was very small. It went once a day, and now there's people from all over the world going to Athos. A lot of non-Orthodox people go there. People from Germany are regularly,
Germany. Oh man,
lots of Germans who are interested in Orthodoxy coming down. And then there's probably there's 2 large boats that are going now with probably hundreds of people on each one. And then there's a lot of small boats to take people there on both sides of the mountain. So Athos has exploded.
Could I pitch the better trip? Okay.
Let's hear Georgia.
Number one, first of all, we got relics. We got stylites. Father Gabriel and his relics, St. Gabriel. We got relics. We got stylites. But guys, the food, forget about it. We're going to eat the food. The Georgian wine, it's only 8,000. It's the oldest wine in the world, made before the Italians. We're going to go visit the guys who work in the field and see what a real village supra looks like, where we drink cha-cha, which is the local moonshine. We're going to go hang out with the people and see Georgia, which has some of the highest mountains in the world, 15, 16, 17,000 footers. And it has some of the warmest Black Sea climbs. We might even swim. You ain't swimming on Father Peter's trip. Come on, man.
That's true. You ain't
You're not even going to see the sun. So our trips, it's better by definite, but also you got to pay some dough. But come on, let's do it.
Now,
here's a recommendation, DPH. Right now, there's 5 guys that want to go to Georgia. Right. Guys, if you play 6 degrees of separation, you know somebody with 10 grand right now. Have them pay for you. Come on, let's go.
There you go. Get a sponsor.
Sponsor.
Father Peter, this isn't the trip you're about to go on, correct? This is a future trip to Mount Athos?
So the 4 there that have donated are going to be going in the winter. We're going to wait until the end of the whole campaign, and then we'll assess the best date, and we'll find a date that everybody can go on. And if we can't, for some reason, we'll just go twice. So people have been asking, everybody asked me if I donate, because I got a job, and of course we're going to make it work. We'll figure it out. We're taking one of these donors with us in a week, but the other 4, because there's 5 actually, one donated offline. They'll be going in the winter, sometime in the winter. We're not sure yet. November, December, January.
There's a question by Alexandria. She said, "Can you include history of EOC and interview some before they all repose?"
Evangelical Orthodox Church, the folks out on the West Coast. Well,
that's a good idea.
Father Peter Gilquist already departed this life, but I think there are others. Certainly.
That's a good idea. That's an intriguing story.
And then one of our Orthodox brothers, actually fellow Hoosier, he just sponsored a stream in which I discussed the Church of Christ. I don't know if you're familiar with them, who are trying to be the church of the first 100 years, the first century. And he says the Church of Christ would be a great example for the film of a group that wants to get back to New Testament Christianity, but are missing apostolic tradition and roots.
I agree.
And it was actually, it was quite interesting when I did that stream that he sponsored, how many Orthodox converts there already were from the Church of Christ, and how the Church of Christ was actually a intermediate place for many people that grew up non-religious or whatever it was, got into the Church of Christ, realized that didn't go far enough, and then became Orthodox. Just an idea. But thank you so much.
These are good
Journey
ideas.
of Abundance.
Very good ideas.
Yeah, these are awesome. Keep them coming. And by the way, find us on social media, Holy Wisdom Films. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on
you on Instagram?
We're on Instagram. Yep, all those places. Holy Wisdom Films. And follow us there because that's the best place to be for all the updates for the film. There you go. And we're also, of course, promoting it on other platforms, right? It's not just on Holy Wisdom. There's a lot of other. First Things is promoting it. Orthodox Ethos is promoting it, and we've got other people who are going to be promoting it in the near future. So yeah, you can see here some of the stuff that's already been done. We did mention Jonathan Pajot's already signed up for interview. Yeah,
he's ready to roll.
Oh,
and
great.
Paul Kingsnorth.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, I just shared that link in the live chat, the Instagram link, guys, and the Indigo link is in the video description. So anybody who watches this in the future, if you'd like to support the project, just click the link in the video description. It'll take you straight to the Indigo page.
So Denise says she's trying to donate, but it won't translate from Greek to English. I don't understand. It shouldn't even be in Greek. I don't understand what.
Well, maybe she means English to Greek.
Maybe that's what she means. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it does, actually. I don't know if there's an automatic translation or not, if that's what she's asking. Somebody wants your email, John. You got an email you want to share with people?
Yeah. JOHNHEERS. John Heers at first-things.org. First-things.org. You can find it on our website too. First Things Foundation.
And I'll just share it right now in the live chat as well. I have that one.
So somebody's asking, what are the dates for the Athos trip? Again, it's not been determined yet. So we're going to wait until the whole campaign is done, and then we're going to determine a date when everybody can participate, or we'll have to take 2 trips if we just can't make it happen on 1 trip. So it's not a problem. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Chimpin for Churros says, I helped host a dinner at your restaurant for John and his friends and didn't realize he was related to Father Peter.
Wait.
I can see that. He doesn't remind everybody of Father Peter. That's true.
Wait, who is really? Yeah, I'm related to Father Peter. It has to do with I use the word suave. I'm a little more suave than Father Peter. Which is clear with my cool hat.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but you are kind of nerdy as it goes.
Yeah,
you guys should have heard
priest shouldn't be suave, so I'm all right with that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
You guys should have heard the banter backstage before we went live.
Look, I'll do it on stage.
You got to watch our live stream we did on OE a couple of days ago.
No,
absolutely.
I'm always afraid I'm going to overdo it, and then you're going to do like he's got like the backlash priest comment where he's like, "I'm a priest, watch yourself," and then I always feel bad for like weeks.
Well, I mean, I don't even have to say it anymore because you're already feeling it. Like the boundaries.
I'm like a cow. I'm like a dog that's been cowed. I'm like, I'm afraid. But listen, man, you're still a brother. You're still the guy we wouldn't let play baseball when you were 8 because you were obnoxious. He'd be like, "Why can't I play?" And it was like clear because you're 8 and you're not good at the thing.
You weren't obnoxious when you would never take me with you for anything.
I was. By the way, I just want to say, if I have asked for forgiveness, I was not a good big brother. I was a classic jerk, spoiled big brother. You know how the Greeks spoil their oldest? Well, my mom set out to do that. I was the oldest, and she spoiled.
See, he's blaming his mom for it all.
See that? That was a very Christian move right there.
Uh-oh. That's not a full reorientation towards Christ.
Yeah. That's right. You nailed it, David P.
I actually
Man.
feel, guys, it went from funny to not funny. It's not funny
Look
right
at
now.
that. Look at that. They got you in the comments, John, older brother syndrome. Tell me about it. Stop blaming mom.
By the way, I know it's awful. Mom, I'm sorry, but here's the thing.
Look at
I was that guy.
David, put the one Nadim Haddad, what he said right there.
Nadim.
When did John become Orthodox?
He's still working on it, Nadim. We're trying to bring him around.
Nadim, if you must know, I became Orthodox. It's like I was charismated, then back. I was one of those guys. So recently, let's say recently, I'm still working on it. No, I was actually charismated before this guy, before my brother. Nadim, before my brother.
Tell him why you wanted to become Orthodox then. What were you looking into?
Look. I'll tell it like it is. I went.
Don't say
a Russian girl.
I don't know why she. Yeah, exactly. DPH knows what's wrong with this guy. Why is he afraid of?
DPH knows why he wanted to become Orthodox.
I don't understand why this isn't. I'm going to say it. It's accessible. It's everyone understands this. I came back from Mali. I had been experienced Islam. Islam was very interesting to me. I went on a search for how I find this in Christianity. I went to a Roman Catholic thing, to a monastery with Franciscans. That didn't work out. And then I met an Ethiopian girl. I was very attracted to her, and she said, "I don't date white people." And then I said, "Just give it a shot." And then she said, "Well, meet me at church." She happened to go to a Russian church because that's what was going on. I don't want to hear about if she was saying communion. I don't know, because when I got there, I got to the Russian church.
It was the same church that Father Zero from Rose went to.
Yeah, it's the OCA in San Francisco.
Hey, we're noticing a pattern here, but it seems like Providence worked out.
That's
With
what I'm
the
trying
Mormon
to tell
girl,
you.
then an Orthodox girl.
I walked in there, and then the babushka yelled at me because I sat down, and then I stayed after, and the next thing I know, I'm being taught about Orthodoxy, and my friend never dated me one time. She was like, "That's not happening."
Because you went in and you went, wow, they're actually ascetics, and they're serious people here.
Well, right? No, the babushka. Look, guys, I was like in the best shape of my life, and I couldn't stand for 15 minutes. And I sat down, and then the babushka walks over to me and starts screaming at me in Russian, and I was ashamed.
She hit you with a hymnal?
That's basically it. But I wanted to talk to the girl. So what happened is I went down to trapeze afterwards, and I went right up to the priest. I was like kind of ticked off. And I said, "Father, like, why did she treat me that way?" And he said, "But we don't sit before God. Why you sit down? You're a grown man. You stand up." And I was like, he's mean. I like it. It was like he believed. I was like, you're right. And it worked. And I started to hang out. And then, yeah, whatever.
He didn't go to the Road Corps. I got it wrong. He went to the OCA Cathedral, Holy Trinity. But Father Seraphim went to the old Road Corps parish in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, I went to a different one. But it was quite a nice parish. And then what after that? What? Everybody should hear conversion stories. It's just not on the radio like this. They're boring after a while.
RIP said, "It's all right, John. My father was converted from Mormonism to Orthodoxy because of a woman. The Orthodox women are great."
Bam. See? RIP. You know what I'm saying? God provides lots of pathways.
RIP's trying to help John with his whole complex. This whole
RIP
complex thing.
RIP. My brother, who's a priest, went to Mount Athos to be a monk, and they said, you know what they said to him? "I don't think so." They said,
"Gotta bring it up." The fact that you even brought that up is kind of like embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You to bring that up.
Are you going to say, "Don't say those things because I'm a priest"?
No, but it's like you gotta like have one up on your younger brother. You know.
Well, what do you think? I was going to let it lie. All right, I should grow up now. DPH. It's time.
Anyway, it's true. I went to Athos, wanted to become a monk, and my elders said, "No, ain't happening. You got to become a priest." So it was hard.
Hey, it's all worked out in the end, though, for both you guys.
Glory to God. Glory to God.
Yes, it has.
Well,
thanks for having us, David. It's been good.
Thank you guys very much for coming on. Again, God bless the project. I'll continue to support anybody. Again, if you'd like to support the Christianities film project documentary, the Indiegogo link is in the video description. It's also going to be in the live chat and the replay. Just click that link and you guys can support. And also remember all the different tiers of the opportunities by supporting that you can contribute to the film.
Bravo.
Thank you, David. Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for tuning in, and just spread the word and show up there, and we'll do this. It's going to happen.
It's
God
happening. It's happening.
Absolutely. Well, thank
All
you
right.
guys so much. God bless you and your families.
You too.
And I will see you all tomorrow night. I'll be doing a film review with Baselit Analyzer on
Hey,
Michael
I
Clayton.
love that guy.
BLA is awesome, isn't he?
Great guy.
I
Great
actually
guy.
talked to him the night before he did the interview with you, and he's like, "Hey, John Heers reached out to you." I was like, "Oh, John reached out, dude."
Great
you should do it."
podcast. I highly recommend our talk. He's a good guy.
Very good guy.
Yep.
Very good guy. All right, I will see you all tomorrow night. As
Take
always,
care, everyone.
until next time, God
right.
bless.
Good night.
Peace.
God bless.
Thank you.